Well, good morning. Happy Thursday to you. Boy, we got some rain last night. I was not anticipating that. We had so the opening of the Wednesday night program was last night. And so it was threatening rain the whole night. Although the rain looked far away, it looked like it was headed our direction. So, but there were a number of children. I'm not exactly sure the count, but there was, it's probably the largest crowd we've had for a Wednesday night. So it was really, really good. And I'm really, really grateful for all the people that put that thing together. Oh my goodness. There was probably seating for, I'm guessing 60, 70 people, and it was almost standing room. I mean, it was for the dinner. So it was good. We had tacos for dinner. Those were very, very nice. I always like it when we have with taco meat. It's one of my favorite meals. So it was a good night. It wasn't hot. It was actually almost a perfect night. It was almost a perfect night. So that was exciting. I'm very, very grateful for that. The next week starts the actual Wednesday night program. We'll have, we're doing a little bit different this year. Not a little bit different. It's the same format, but we're adding a few programs. So from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock will be the younger kids, but I'll also be doing a basics of the faith. We're calling it Rooted and Rising. And the way it's going to work is that we'll announce what the topic's going to be. So if this is a topic that you're interested in, it's just one time. You're welcome to come and say, this is one topic I've always been unclear about, so I want to come and listen to this. And then over the course of the whole year, there'll be 13 weeks in the fall and 13 weeks in the spring. We'll hit 26 topics. And at the end of that time, you should have a pretty thorough understanding of the basics of the faith. If you remember our life tree, our discipleship cycle, the seed is planted and then it's grown. And for that first year, learning about the basics of the faith, and then for the rest of your life, putting those basics into practice. So that's what this, the initial catechism. Last year I did the Didache, which is the first catechism of the church. I'm not sure that was, it was interesting and it was good, but there was certainly a lot of stuff in that, but it wasn't packaged the way I think that people today think about their faith. So we're going to package it differently. It's pretty much the same information, but we're packaging it differently. We're doing a different format. So the format is I'll do a kind of a topical Bible study for the first part, and then we'll open it up to questions and answers. And based generally on this, you could ask questions like, I have a question about this. So this coming Wednesday, a week from yesterday, we're going to talk about the nature of God. And who knows where that will lead us? Because God, like where did God come from, and where is He going to, and how do we know that He exists, and all these sort of questions. What does Scripture say, and then how does that equate with some of the other things that other people tell? So it should be fun. We'll be doing that for 26 weeks, starting next Wednesday in 6 days. And I'm really, really excited about that. So last night we had that's from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Included with that is a kids program for the little kids. And then we have dinner from 6 o'clock to 6:30. And then after that, there'll be an adult program. Trace is putting together a financial Bible study. And I think that's going to be really, really good too. And then the youth, the junior high and the youth, the middle school and the youth will put together their program. They'll be able to do their program. So it's a full night for sure. It's a full night for sure. And looking forward to it really. All right. What else? Birthdays. We have one birthday today, Ben Jones. Happy birthday. And then on Friday is Shay Newton and Mia Piscatano. Saturday is Kason Wilson. And Sunday is Barbara Bulgren. So happy birthday to all of you. May you have blessed days. If you know those people, you're welcome to shoot them out an email and say happy birthday. And let's go ahead and get into our study. We're still in Leviticus chapter 14, and we just talked about what happens if a person has a defiling disease on their body and all the sacrifices necessary for that. But now we're going to go to talk about what happens if somebody has some sort of mold in their house. This is kind of a weird one, but this is Leviticus chapter 14, beginning at verse 33, and it goes like this. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, when you enter the land of Canaan, which I am giving you as your possession, and I put a spreading mold in a house in that land, the owner of the house must go and tell the priest, I have something that looks like a defiling mold in my house. So let's just stop right there. It's not like if a defiling mold shows up. The Lord says to Aaron and Moses, when I put a spreading mold in a house in that land. Now, that's interesting. Everything in the Old Testament, it's rooted in God. They never saw anything that didn't have the hand of God in it or didn't have a spiritual component to it. Today, we understand molds a lot. We understand where the mold spores come from and how they propagate and how you can destroy them and all that sort of thing. Because we live in the 21st century. And when you live in the 21st century, modern science says these are the things that cause it. Because we understand it at a very, very, very microscopic level, we forget that everything has a spiritual component. So everything at some level is connected to God. And they knew this very, very well thousands of years ago. It was a lot easier for them to see it being connected to God than it is today. Today, we almost put a clinical, scientific explanation on everything, and we forget that there's a spiritual component. So, am I saying that God places the mold in somebody's house? No. Were they saying that? Probably not. They were saying that they know at its root cause, God is in charge of everything. And so if a mold shows up in the house, God had his hand in it. That's basically what they're saying. Well, if a mold shows up in your house, God has his hand in it too. It's not like he's saying, okay, I want that mold to go right there. I mean, there might be some scientific explanation as to why the mold ends up where it is. But we forget, but ultimately, the existence of mold comes from God. And the idea that mold spreads from place to place, God allows it. Everything in this earth isn't directed by God. Everything is under the permission of God. Let's put it that way. God developed mold, and it spreads from place to place. And we look at a mold that shows up in the house, and we say, why did God allow the mold in the house? Well, a deeper question is, why did God invent molds in the first place? What is the purpose of mold? And see, the scientific community would say, well, I don't see any purpose. But if God invented mold, then there's probably a purpose for it. And if it spreads from house to house, there's a reason why at some level it needs to spread from house. It has to be a spreading thing and can't just stay in one location. And when we finally see God face to face, we can ask him the question about why molds. The one that I'll ask is why the phorid flies. That's the one that I'm going to ask him. We have every once in a while, we'll get an infestation of flies. And you ask yourself, God, why are you allowing mosquitoes and flies and bugs and phorid flies and things like that? And we'll find out that there was a reason that he created it. And without it, the world would not be completely the way he wanted it to work. So it's just something that we have to live with that's a nuisance as part of the human condition. I know that we want to, in some places, wipe out phorid flies. Let's say we're going to go into an area and we're going to completely, but if we got rid of every mosquito on earth, what would be the impact of that? And how far down the line of things before we realized, oh my goodness, why did we get rid of all the mosquitoes? Because it caused this problem or that problem. Same thing with phorid flies. It's all part of God's creation, and we don't understand it, and we probably never will understand it in this life, but the important lesson to take away from this is that the Old Testament people saw God as the primary mover of everything in life, that everything had a spiritual component. It's a lot easier back then because they didn't have really a huge scientific knowledge, but they saw everything as having a spiritual root. And in our modern world today, we forget that there is a spiritual root in everything. Everything has a spiritual connection. All right. So if you find mold, you go get the priest, and the priest comes to the house. The owner house tells the priest, I've seen something that looks like defiling mold in my house. Then what happens? Verse 36. The priest is to order the house to be emptied before he goes in to examine the mold, so that nothing in the house will be pronounced unclean. After this, the priest is to go in and inspect the house. He is to examine the mold on the walls, and if it has a greenish or reddish depressions that appear to be deeper than the surface of the wall, the priest shall go out of the doorway of the house and close it up for 7 days. On the seventh day, the priest shall return to inspect the house. If the mold has spread on the walls, he has to order that the contaminated stones be torn out and thrown into an unclean place outside of town. He must have all the inside walls of the house scraped, and the material that is scraped off dumped into an unclean place outside the town. Then they are to take other stones to replace these and take new clay and plaster to the house. Wow. I mean, doesn't that sound like something we would do today? Like if you found a mold in your house, wouldn't you scrape out all the mold and replace it, and destroy the mold? We don't think of molds as being, I think it's partially because we know where molds come from and the spores, and we have treatments and penicillins and all that sort of thing. But back then they didn't. I mean, a mold was a very, very, very serious thing, and you had to get the mold out of the house. You had to completely destroy it, throw it away, and start over again. But they don't say to tear down the whole house or to permanently lock up the house. They just get rid of the mold and then let's move on. And so mold is something that is very isolated, specific to one location. And but if you find it, you get rid of it, you throw it away, and you rebuild. Don't have to necessarily tear down the whole house. So the takeaway from this is if you have mold in your house, the sooner you find the mold, the better, because the sooner you find the mold, you can reduce the size of the mold, reduce the damage that has to be replaced, and that sort of thing. Which is true here. If you find a little bit of mold, catch it early. We don't have much mold here in Arizona. We have some, but mostly we live in a very, very dry climate. Mold needs a lot of moisture to propagate. So it does happen. You do find mold. You find all sorts of things. And some of the molds can be very, very nasty. So if you have mold in your house, get rid of it. Don't call the priest. Don't call me. Call Terminex or whatever. I don't know who the mold removers are. All right. 43. If the defiling mold reappears in the house after the stones have been torn out and the house scraped and plastered, the priest is to go and examine it. And if the mold is spread in the house, it is a persistent defiling mold. The house is unclean. It must be torn down. Its stones, timber, and all its plaster all taken out of the town to an unclean place. So there you go. You get a little grace period, but if it continues to grow, then you got to start all over again, which is exactly what we would do here in modern day world. I mean, what they were doing thousands of years ago, we do today. It's the exact same thing. I love it. Verse 46. Anyone who goes into the house while it is closed up will be unclean till evening. Anyone who sleeps or eats in the house must wash their clothes. But if the priest comes to examine it and the mold has not spread after the house has been plastered, he shall pronounce the house clean because the defiling mold is gone. To purify the house, he is to take 2 birds and some cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop. He shall kill one of the birds over the fresh water in a clay pot. Then he is to take the cedar wood, the hyssop, the scarlet yarn, and the living bird, dip them into the blood of the bird, the dead bird, and the fresh water, and sprinkle the house 7 times. He shall purify the house with the bird's blood, the fresh water, the live bird, the cedar wood, the hyssop, and the scarlet yarn. Then he is to release the live bird in the open fields outside the town. In this way he will make atonement for the house, and it will be clean. These are the regulations for any defiling skin disease, for a sore, for defiling molds in fabric or in a house, and for swelling, a rash, or a shiny spot to determine when something is clean or unclean. Let me just finish this here. These are the regulations for defiling skin disease and defiling molds. So these are what happens. If you want to pronounce it clean, then you get a bird and you do all of these things. Now, these seem to me like they are very, very unusual. Like cedar wood and 2 birds and scarlet yarn and hyssop. And you kill the birds and you purify the house with the bird's blood and the fresh water and the cedar and all of these things. And they don't make it, it is unclear reading it why this is what is to be done. But Moses and Aaron hear this from the Lord, and so they do this. They do these procedures to clean up the house. It would be very, very easy to assume that maybe perhaps these are things that other people had tried and they worked. Like maybe somewhere before Moses and Aaron, somebody tried to kill a bird or sprinkle the blood or put in a fresh hyssop or cedar wood or scarlet yarn, which is red yarn, all of these different things, and they worked. And so they found out through trial and error that that these were the things that pleased God in order to sacrifice in the house and pronounce it clean. I don't know. The way I read this is that this is coming from God, and he's telling, this is what I want you to do. And in modern day science, we look at it and we say, we're not sure what this is all about. But Aaron and Moses did, and this is what the Israelites did from this point on. And they followed it to a T. When we talk about the people getting into the promised land, Joshua judges the one of the things that the people forget is to follow God's law. Well, this is part of God's law. The molds and the molds on the yarn and the skin disease and all these things. If you forget, and people forget God's law, we think that forgetting God's law is simply forgetting, to read the Torah or whatever. But all of these things are put into place by God to Moses and Aaron for a reason. And it's so that the people of God can remain healthy and be a people of God and bless the world. And when they forget about these things, it does not go well for them. So imagine you throw out God's law about the molds, and all of a sudden somebody gets a mold and there's no regulation by God to deal with it. It can spread from house to house to house, and it can kill a lot of people. And we look at it today and we say, well, of course it's going to spread from house to house because it's a mold and spores, and you got to kill it and you got to destroy the plaster and throw out the house and all that. I mean, we know that today. But you can see that if you forget God's law, if these things aren't read to the people, then they don't do it. And when they don't do it, then bad things happen. And so they need to be reminded periodically about all of God's law. They need to read these things to the people so that the people remember. The men need to come into the synagogue and read God's law and hear it so that when they go to the house, maybe they check behind all the corners of the building and make sure there's no mold growing, or inspect all the cloth. These are things that are easy to forget from generation to generation. And if you are a person of God, it is your duty to teach these things to the children and to the children's children to make sure that these laws are passed on from generation to generation. These are the regulations that God placed down for the good of the Israelites. All right. How much time? Yeah, let's get into the next one. This should be interesting. Chapter 15, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when any man has an unusual bodily discharge, such a discharge is unclean. Whether it continues flowing from his body or it is blocked, it will make him unclean. This is how his discharge will bring about uncleanness. Any bed the man with the discharge lies on will be unclean, and anything he sits on will be unclean. Anyone who touches his bed must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. Whoever sits on anything that the man with the discharge sat on must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. Whoever touches the man who has a discharge must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. If the man with the discharge spits on anyone who is clean, they must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. Everything the man sits on when riding will be unclean, and whoever touches any of the things that were under him will be unclean till evening. Whoever picks up those things must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. Anyone the man with the discharge touches without rinsing their hands with water must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. A clay pot that the man touches must be broken, and any wooden article is to be rinsed with water. When a man is cleansed from his, okay, so that's then we get into the cleansing. So this is wow. What kind of discharge could it? Well, it could be, discharges number 1 and discharges number 2. It could, or I suppose it could even be throw up. What are they? There's a technical medical term for that. I can't remember what it is, but any discharge from a body that's not natural. Let me put it that way. And this can be from any orifice of the body, or even from an open sore, I suppose. These are the things that the people need to be aware of, not touch anything. And the man is he is unclean at this point. And anything he touches is unclean. His pots in his house are unclean. The things that he sits on are unclean. The things that he touches are unclean. And today in modern science, we would say, of course, if you've got some sort of disease, everything that you touch could potentially have that disease. Isn't it amazing that God provided this back then so that he allowed the people to understand, even though they didn't understand all the medical science of it, they understood at a basic level that if a man is sick, the things that he touches is unclean. And I'm just so amazed that they would have this thousands of years ago. We think that thousands of years ago, because they didn't have any medical science, they didn't do anything. But God gave them these commands and told them these are the things you're supposed to do. So don't touch anything. And it doesn't specify what the disease is. It could be obviously some of the diseases of the body where you have bodily fluids coming out. Some of them can be pretty nasty. I'm sure that there's a whole catalog of diseases like this. Today, we would probably take a sample, send it off to a lab. The lab would run some tests and find out, by a process of elimination, try to get to what it is, the disease. And with our genetic knowledge and DNA and all this stuff, it probably won't be too much longer that they can actually identify from a DNA what the disease is and exactly how long it's been around, how long it's been identified, what treatments have happened that have worked, what treatments that don't work. Understanding with this particular DNA sequence, these are the things we might want to try. And with modern AI, artificial intelligence, they being computer scientists and AI people, they can feed all of these things into computers, large language models, to try to completely isolate and determine the human genetic genome and all the genomes of different various diseases. And my guess is it will not be much longer, maybe 5 to 10 years, definitely within my lifetime, assuming I live, a normal life, that they will be able to identify any disease and what the potential treatments are for any of those diseases. And that is certainly on the horizon. And I think it's also going to be on the horizon for cancers too. I think the massive research is happening in cancers. So I'm happy about that. My mom died of cancer in her mid-50s. And so I've always felt that I'm kind of living on borrowed time which I'm very, very grateful for. And just have to, pray that God continues to work miracles through modern science. But this is for being 2,000 years ago. This is pretty good. This will help in a lot of different areas. Just isolate, watch. Doesn't heal the guy, but it prevents the disease from spreading. I guess that's the most impressive thing, and that's something that should be done. All right. So we finished at verse 12. So let's say 15, verse 13 for Monday. And that would be 14, 15, 16, 18. 18. All right. So let's close in prayer. Gracious God, thank you for this day. Thank you for the rain. And until we meet again, keep us in your grace. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. So thank you, all of you, for joining me. I pray that God's richest blessing is on you today. Have a wonderful weekend. And we will see you on Monday. Take care. Blessings. Bye.